And then much to my consternation I thought, oh no, they really mean it. And then a telephone call. And I thought, well, I really am running out of choices. So here we are, all gathered together. Thank you very much for coming. And of course, by necessity, I have to make a few notes. My first admission, however, is that it hardly seems as though I am worthy for this task of standing before you today. Because, to admit quite frankly, I am somewhat of a traditional chap and have a somewhat traditional experience, as I have been now married for 50 years plus. And I have no colourful events to relate to that half a century. Therefore, in fact, you may want to put me down as being perhaps a somewhat boring old guide. a guide for this particular service which we are about to partake of. And I must say that I must seem that boring old guy because by good fortune, or maybe lack of enterprise on my part, 50 years have long since passed. Please, however, don't put me down as being an example of virtuosity or even being temperate. Because having spent the bulk of my life working in the construction industry, I can never say that I've had a sheltered life. And therefore that's really enough of what I need to talk about myself. The special thing, however, about Christian marriage, and I think it really is probably one of the most important facets of it, it enables us all to live with failure, without regret and without despair. It offers us forgiveness, and it also enables us to be able to struggle on and retaining a sense of self-worth that we can carry on in spite of failings and difficulties which confront us all during our married life. It gives us in fact strength to maybe attempt the improbable, nay, the impossible, even while we fail. And the words of the old song come to mind. Dust yourself up, pick yourself important facets relating to such things as a Christian marriage. So when two people, like Melanie and Nathan, fall in love and they unite together in love, this is something what they are telling the world. The whole world will know the fact that they have a sense of love for each other. And this, of course, is the reason for this ceremony now, that we can all come together and acknowledge this fact, this ceremony which we are now attending, because it does mean that these people can stand up and declare in public of their fondness, their affection and their love for each other. And this is where we as a congregation come in, because they are now surrounded with their friends and their relatives. And this means that we also have a responsibility to both these young people, so that we can show a caring love towards them. For we know indeed that we can become a great source of strength, because we ourselves are also pledging our support as they are to each other. We are pledging our support to them for their future. C.S. Lewis, the somewhat famous writer and broadcaster, had a lot to say about marriage. The remarkable thing, of course, that he was a bachelor. But nevertheless, he did make one or two interesting comments and aspects of married life. One of them was, in fact, that people two young people together, like Nathan and Melanie, come together and they are combined. They become two halves of a whole. He goes on to say that they are like a piece, like a lock and a key is in fact one mechanism. And a violin and a bow are one single musical instrument. Therefore they are combined together, two halves to create a whole. In contrast, I remember hearing some years ago, and it seemed to me so strange that I made a note of it, that the words reported on the radio was that 2 weeks after whirlwind romance, they found they had fallen in love with each other. One was a famous male film star, and the other one was a member of an all-female pop group. And it was then said, now we know that this is the stuff of fiction. This is what the media like to talk about. This is what advertisers sell their wares. This idea of the fairy tale situation where they all lived happily ever after. And we know, in fact, that this does not always exist. But one important factor which cannot be overlooked, and that is, of course, the physical attraction to two young people of itself is a vital ingredient, an essential ingredient, to make a successful marriage. Now, nobody would suggest for 1 minute that the Bible itself is solely a handbook of a successful marriage. This would not even be suggested. But nevertheless, it does give very clear signposts, indications, guidance to those who are already married or those who are indeed contemplating marriage. It gives us very valuable signs